One of the biggest frustrations that I hear about or see in ESO is players wondering and asking the questions of why they aren't hitting X amount of DPS or why their build isn't working. This question is a perfectly reasonable and valid question to ask, and my usual response is to have them fix X or to have them check Y to make sure they are optimized. And sometimes that player says, oh no, I actually haven't done that, and that fixes some issues. But other times players have everything right, but they still just can't make the build work like it's supposed to. Let's talk about a couple reasons why your build isn't working. Real quick, thank you to my patrons and YouTube members. Thank you again to Johnny as my newest patron and Catherine Rose. I do appreciate it. I'll have more on that at the end of the video. You can always watch me play live on twitch.tv/brahwegotthis and check out our Discord and our website at brahwegotthis.com. First off, let's talk about your traits. You could have the wrong traits on your armor. Traits are very important to in-game builds. Having the wrong trait can be the difference of extra spell critical, more magicka, more health, more stamina, or possibly just more recovery. If you're following a build, these are something that need to be a priority when following it. Obviously, you need to have the right armor sets that the builder is talking about, and you need to have the other aspects as well. But let's go and give an example of, let's say you're following a magicka DPS build. So on this magicka DK build, this is my solo build on my website and on my YouTube channel. This is something that if you have, say, max stamina instead of arcane on your jewelry, on all your jewelry, you're going to be at a major disadvantage, right? And you'll see here that my jewelry actually does not have all arcane traits because Briarheart is a medium armor set, so it is default with the jewelry to give you max stamina for the most part. So with this, you'll see that blue, this gives 827 max stamina. At purple, this gives 847 max magicka. So if this was purple, this would give me 847 max magicka. But what you see here is I have the healthy trait here and the stamina, or the robust trait here. The reason I have this is because I haven't been able to switch this yet on the live server, but you'll see that since I do not have arcane, I'm missing out on almost 1700 max magicka, which is a big deal for some builds. And if you don't realize that, that is something that can really be detrimental. Now, you'll see here that on some of these traits as well, for the most part, I have divines on everything that I need, but I do have well fitted here for false gods because I haven't been able to change that yet. I have reinforced for Iceheart and training for Iceheart Mask because I have not been able to get the roll for that or change it yet with transmute. So that makes a difference as well, because you'll see your divines increases the Mundus Stone effects by 8.1%. When you stack those effects, it does make a difference for your spell critical or whatever your Mundus Stone is. Another big thing is when you're a tank is something that really needs to pay attention to their traits, because with tanking, traits are going to be giving you maybe more armor, maybe cost reduction for blocking. They're maybe going to be giving you some more resources, right? And for tanking, that is a lot more important because you could run out of resources very, very easily as a tank if you don't have enough block cost reduction or if you don't have enough resistances with armor. So it's very important to pay attention to the traits that you have. Now, you're not going to just like instantly die if you don't have the right traits, obviously, because you'll see here I don't have every perfect trait, but it's something that will help your build have improvements. The next thing I want to talk about is not having the right champion point setup, okay? So I've talked about this a little bit in videos, but not setting your champion points up is definitely a big thing that can change your build and that can really just not help you be successful. And the biggest thing I want to talk about real quick is that also the amount of champion points do matter. Now, if you compare someone that is the same skill level at 1000 CP to say CP 300, the person that's at 1000 CP is going to have a clear advantage because they're going to have more passive stats in a way that the CP like 300 person doesn't have. Now, I've seen people that are 2000 CP that are way worse at this game than people that are like 500 CP, but if you're comparing someone with the same skill level, it will matter, okay? Because it lets you get a higher bonus in some of these things. But when you slot your CP points, you need to make sure that you know what you're doing with this, because this is one of the biggest things. I have a damage video that I will have in the description that you can watch as well that talks a lot about this. But for instance, let's say on this magicka DK, you see here, you'll see that I have unstable wall of fire, some eruption, I've got volatile armor, I've got a lot of damage over times in this build, okay? That's a damage over time, that's a damage over time, damage over time, damage over time, damage over time. You'll see that I have that. You'll also see that my main spammable is a single target ability, right? And then this one also is technically can hit multiple enemies, but this is direct damage. This is also direct damage. You'll see here that in champion points, I have slotted the damage over time because I have tons of damage over time. I have a single target one, and I have Biting Aura, which also does area of effect. I could choose Biting Aura or I could choose Master Arms if I want to, but I've also just been trying out different styles just to see how much they change when I use the direct damage one versus area of effect. But these matter, okay? So if your build has literally no area of effect, you don't need the CP star, okay? You just don't. It's not going to do anything for you. If your build has all direct damage, you need to make sure you put it into this. Making sure you have the right CP is important. Another thing too is picking up certain recovery CPs is also another good thing to have, because recovery is really going to help and stack up over time. Recovery is helpful for tanks. It's helpful for any build, because that just is how fast your stats are going to recover. So making sure that your skills correlate with your CP is something that will be pretty big. You don't want to look over that. You don't want to gloss over that. Speaking of things that you might not have working in your build, I want to talk real quick about something that does work in my life, and that is the Ridge wallet. Something that I really do love in my life is the Ridge wallet, because it protects me from digital pickpocketers with its RFID blocking technology. And again, I just love its styles. It's so compact, you guys. It can hold up to 12 cards, and it even has a cash strap as well that you can put your cash in. I really do love the Ridge wallet. They sponsored a lot of videos here in the channel, you all, and it's something that it's compact. I carry it everywhere I go. And so if you want to check out my discount code below in the description and at the bottom of the screen here, you can get 10% off your order, and you can also find that down below in the description with that link. But thank you again to the Ridge wallet for sponsoring my video. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about that is a reason that contributes to your build not working is having the wrong bar setup. Okay, now this is a multitude of things. Okay, this could be not having the right skills on the right bars, having a really convoluted rotation that you've built for yourself, or just not understanding what your skills do. And I'll tell you right now, this is something that I have done before. I've not understood fully what a skill does, and it hasn't made sense on my bar, and I've had a build or two that I'm like, maybe I should have not had that skill on that bar. So I've definitely made mistakes with this, so it's not just something that new players make. I just want you to know that going forward into this. But so what do I mean by the wrong bar setup? One of the biggest things that I see is people just not optimizing the placement of their skills. Okay, so I talk about this in some videos. The first main thing I want to say is if you're using two bars, okay, your back bar is primarily supposed to be things that are damage over times, area of effects, buffs, things that you're not spending a lot of time on your bar with. Making sure your back bar is filled with your setup skills for the most part is important, because if you're just constantly switching between bars in a very clunky way, it's going to really slow down your rotation. Okay, it's going to be something that's not helpful for your build. And then the other thing with the wrong bar setup is just not knowing what your skills do. You could be spamming a skill that's just not doing anything for you. Like for instance, there's really no reason to spam engulfing flames because it's a damage over time. So if you don't know what this does, you could just be clicking the skill over and over and over again, and you're just kind of losing DPS. You're just not using the optimal form of your build, whereas you might want to spam force pulse. So knowing what your skills do are really going to help as well. And so that is one of the biggest things I want to talk about with that. The next thing is actual placement of skills. Okay, and I've talked about this in other videos. Like I said, you've got to find where certain skills make the most sense for your keybinds. Okay, now you might have seen my controller video where I played controller for the first time in ESO, and I was totally lost. This is rough. I did not know how to do a rotation on controller, so keyboard and mouse is something that's very native to me. But it's very important to find areas that correlate to easy to click buttons. So for instance, I've put this like eruption skill on my 2 key for like 5 years, so it's literally muscle memory. Like eruption is seriously something that I know what I'm doing with my fingers here on the rotation. It's muscle memory. Usually any skill that is a buff or like just something that's going to be on my bar is going to be on my 3 key, because for my fingers on my keyboard, it's really hard for me to hit my 3 key in my rotation constantly because my middle finger is on the W key. Okay, so I cannot spam the 3 key very often, so a lot of times I put skills that I don't use very often or that just sit there on my bar on the 3 key. A lot of my spammables are on my 4 key or on my 2 key. Okay, because 2 and 4 are really easy to hit with my fingers when I'm actually doing content. And then my mouse is a SteelSeries Sensei, and I usually put a lot of I put my bar switch on that. I put like an AoE on that because it's something that again I can use that will be very easy to click. I think the default's like tilde or something like that. That's just too hard for me to hit to switch bars. So that actually matters, y'all. Like putting your skills on certain areas of your bar can help you make your build work a little bit better. You got to find something that really allows you to be able to click the buttons as easy as possible. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is you might be playing the wrong class. And that's not saying that you picked the wrong class because there's a class that you just shouldn't play ever, because you can play any class in this game as a DPS or, as a tank, and you'll be fine on certain things. Like, obviously there's going to be highs and lows of certain classes when it comes to the high meta in-game type stuff, but for the most part you'll be fine with any class, okay? But what I mean by that is that you just might not be playing a class that is fun or that favors your skill set or favors the type of play that you like to have in games, okay? Not everyone is going to enjoy a Magic and Necromancer rotation, okay? I spoke to Deltia last week, and Deltia's like, yeah, I just don't really like the Magic or Necromancer rotation, but he loves the Templar Magicka, class. He just loves it. I have a friend that absolutely hates the Templar Magicka build. I mean, he just does. Like, he doesn't like it. It's boring. So there's going to be a class that you just probably don't like, and there's going to be a class that you probably really, really like. And this is something that I want to mention, that it's a really big thing in MMOs and other games, is if you don't find something that you enjoy playing, it ruins the experience of the game for you. It really does. Like, it's not going to make it enjoyable. And so I have plenty of class videos here in the channel that you can check out. I've got ultimate class videos that goes through all the classes. I've got the best class for you. I've got all that stuff here in the channel that you can check out that goes into all that and helps you decide. But really, you may just be playing a class that you just don't enjoy. You just might not like the rotation. My word of advice is, if you're picking a class based off of meta, don't start out that way, okay? Because you may hate that meta class. Find something you enjoy and you will play this game a lot longer than if you just stick to like the meta class, because that could change. The meta class could change next patch. A lot of times things do change. So find something that you know that you will like. The Magic DK is something I've always liked since I tried it. I tried playing Sorcerer starting out. I was a little confused, but I still like Sorcerer now, but I don't really like Magicka Sorcerer. I personally love Stamsork. Stamsork is one of my favorite DPS classes in the game, but Magic DK is also one of my favorite DPS classes in the game. So find something that you like. Now, this is the biggest one that I want to talk about, and this is the biggest reason that people's builds do not work, and that is not enough time, okay? What do I mean by that? Well, if you go into ESO and you've put a month of time into this game, or you're a month in, and you look up a build from content creators and you see that, they're hitting 100k DPS plus, and you're not hitting that, and you're sitting there and you're frustrated, you have to understand that it's not because you're doing something maybe necessarily wrong. You could be doing all of these things that I'm telling you. You could have the right traits, you could have the right CP, you could have the right armor, you could have the right bar setup, you could be enjoying your class, but your build's just not doing that, okay? So why is that? It's because that you haven't put enough time into it. And I'm serious. These content creators that are hitting these insane DPS numbers are not content creators that just picked up the game last month and started hitting 100k DPS. ESO is not like this. I don't know if other MMOs are necessarily like this, but in ESO, the way combat works is, and the way you get higher DPS is not by just having the right armor and having the right class and having the right skills. A lot of it is user input. Okay, the user has to know what they're doing. You have to know how to do your rotations. You have to practice light attack weaving. You have to weave. You have to animation cancel. Unfortunately, that is why a lot of people don't like the combat in ESO, is because of animation canceling and light attack weaving. But there's also a lot of people that really do like the combat in ESO. So you have to spend time doing your rotation on a target dummy. You have to spend time doing your rotation in content. It takes these content creators a long time to get to that point. There's a reason that I don't hit 100k DPS on my main account. It's because I don't practice. The reason I don't practice is because I don't care. I'm doing what I want to do in the game. But if you want to hit some of these numbers, you have to practice the rotation. You have to put time in. And that's the bottom line. There are some builds out there from content creators, including myself and a few other ones, that have very easy rotations, and it's a little bit easier to hit some of these higher numbers, but it's still going to take time. You can't expect when you get to CP 160 and you built this out, or CP 300, that you're going to hit 100k DPS. You might. If you do, you are amazing at this game, and you have picked up light attack weaving and animation canceling very, very easily. But if you're not like that, it's going to take time. you cannot get to that point by just being like snapping your finger. It's just how ESO is designed. You want to hit those numbers, you have to practice it. And I've talked to people that hit those numbers before. I had a patron that did that, and he's like, yeah, I did this for hours. You know, I practiced this for hours. Like, it's just something that you have to do if you want to get to that point in a lot of ways. Like I said, there are some rotations that are not like that. I think Skinny Cheeks has made a build that's like really easy to use. I think Zynode's made one. Hack the Minotaur has a lot of builds like that. I've made some 1-bar builds here in the channel recently that are just very simple to use, but you still have to in some way understand it and practice it. And so that is the biggest reason why your build is not working. And I know some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to practice that, but that is the bottom line. It's something you have to learn that skill of before you can really reach that. If you need help with this, there's tons of resources on YouTube for this, but also I have some guides here in the channel that can help you out in general with just ESO. And like I said, I don't want you to feel discouraged going away from this video. I want you to be realistic, and I want you to understand that this isn't something, again, that you can just hit 110k DPS after 2 weeks of playing this game. You really do have to practice, and you've got to check some of these things that I just mentioned before to make sure your build is optimized the way that the build is talking about. Again, your traits, your champion points, the right bar setup, the right class that you think is fun to play. These are all going to help all of that, but then you have to practice it and you have to use it, okay? But check out these videos up in the cards here. Again, thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to become a patron, I have perks like early access to videos, vlogs, much more content as well. That's down in the description, as well as YouTube membership. And you can check out our website, brahwegotthis.com, twitch.tv/brahwegotthis, and our Discord. But thank you again for watching. Just remember to have faith, be great, and I'll see you on ESO.